You've been praying every day, sometimes multiple times a day, and nothing changes. The situation stays the same. The answer never comes. And deep down, a question starts to grow inside you. A question you're almost afraid to say out loud. Is God even listening? I need to tell you something today that nobody in church is saying clearly enough, and it might change everything about the way you pray. Look, I've been there, that place where prayer feels like you're talking to a wall, where you get on your knees with all the faith you have, you pour your heart out, and then silence. Days pass, weeks pass, sometimes months, and the thing you asked for still hasn't happened. And then you start wondering, is it me? Did I do something wrong? Is my faith too small? Am I praying the wrong way? Or worse, does prayer even work at all? These are real questions, and I think a lot of people carry them alone because they feel like they shouldn't be asking them. Like it's a sin to even wonder why God hasn't answered. But today, we're going to talk about it. All of it. Because I believe that understanding why some prayers seem to go unanswered is one of the most important things a person of faith can learn. And by the end of this video, I want you to feel something you maybe haven't felt in a while. Real hope. Not fake, forced, pretend hope. Real hope. The kind that comes from actually understanding what's going on. So here's the problem. Most people pray the same way they send a text message. You type what you want, you hit send, and you wait for a reply. And if the reply doesn't come fast enough, you start to panic. You start to doubt. You start to think the other person isn't there. But prayer isn't a text message. And God isn't a vending machine where you put in the right words, and out comes the answer. The problem is that a lot of us were taught to pray, but we were never really taught what prayer actually is. We learned the words. We learned the position. Bow your head, close your eyes, fold your hands. We learned when to pray, before meals, before bed. But nobody sat us down and said, hey, here's what prayer actually does. Here's what it's for. Here's what can get in the way. And because of that gap, millions of people today are walking around with a broken relationship with prayer. They pray, nothing seems to happen, they feel bad about themselves, and slowly, they start praying less, and then maybe not at all. And that is a tragedy, because prayer is one of the most powerful things a human being can do. Not because it's a magic spell, but because of what it actually connects you to. So let's break this down. Let's talk about the real reasons why prayers sometimes seem like they're not working. And I promise you, some of these are going to surprise you. Reason number 1. You're praying, but you don't actually believe it will happen. This one is uncomfortable to hear, but I think it's the most common one. You say the words, you go through the motions, but somewhere in the back of your mind, there's a voice saying, this isn't going to work. It never does. And here's the thing, that voice matters. Not because God is punishing you for doubting, but because doubt changes the way you live after you pray. Think about it. If you truly believed deep in your heart that what you prayed for was going to happen, how would you act? You'd probably live differently. You'd probably make decisions differently. You'd walk around with a different kind of peace. But when you pray with doubt, you finish praying and then go right back to worrying. You go right back to trying to fix everything yourself. You go right back to stress and control. And then when nothing changes, you say prayer didn't work. But prayer isn't just the words you say. Prayer is also the posture of your heart after you say them. James chapter 1 talks about this. The person who doubts is like a wave of the sea, tossed back and forth. And I don't think that's a punishment. I think that's just a description of reality. When your heart is divided, half trusting, half not, you can't receive what's being given. So the first thing to check is not your words. It's your heart. Do you actually believe something can change? Even if you don't see how? Reason number 2. You're asking for the right thing, but at the wrong time. This one requires patience. And patience is hard, especially in a world where everything is instant. Instant food, instant entertainment, instant answers. But God's timing is not our timing. And that is not a cliche. That is a deep spiritual truth that will save you from a lot of pain if you really grab it. There are things you've prayed for that haven't happened yet. Not because God said no, but because the time isn't right. Maybe you're not ready for it yet. Maybe the people around you aren't ready. Maybe something else needs to happen first before that prayer can be answered in a way that actually blesses you instead of hurting you. Think about a seed. You plant a seed in the ground, you water it. You come back the next day and there's nothing there. Does that mean the seed is dead? Does that mean the water didn't work? No. Something is happening underground that you can't see yet. The roots are forming. The foundation is being built. And when the time is right, it comes up. Some of your prayers are seeds. They're alive. They're working. You just can't see them yet. And here's the dangerous part. A lot of people dig up the seed because they got impatient. They stop trusting. They make a decision that goes against what they prayed for because waiting felt like nothing was happening. And then later they look back and realize God was so close to answering, and they got in the way. Don't dig up the seed. Reason number 3. There's something between you and your prayer. This one is personal, and I say this with all the love I have. Sometimes the reason our prayers feel blocked is because we're holding on to something we know we need to let go of: bitterness, unforgiveness, pride, a habit you know isn't right, a relationship that's pulling you away from who you know you should be. These things matter, not because God is keeping score and decided to punish you, but because spiritual life is a connection, and just like a phone call with bad signal, things in between can break the connection. If you're angry at someone and refuse to forgive them, and then you pray, there's a conflict inside your own spirit. You're saying, "Lord, help me," while also saying in your heart, "I will never forgive that person." Those two things fight each other, and it becomes hard to receive what you're asking for when your heart is closed in another direction. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect to pray. Nobody is perfect. Prayer is not for perfect people, but it does mean that if there's something specific you know needs to change, God might be using this season of silence to draw your attention to it. The silence isn't punishment. The silence is an invitation to go deeper. Reason number 4. You're asking for what you want, but God sees what you need. This is maybe the hardest one, because sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the prayer isn't answered the way you wanted, because what you wanted wasn't actually the best thing for you. I know that sounds hard. I know when you're in pain, when you really want something, when you've been crying and praying about something for a long time, the last thing you want to hear is, "Maybe God has something better." But think about the times in your life when something you really wanted didn't happen. And then, months later, or years later, you looked back and thought, "Wow, I'm so glad that didn't happen. I'm so glad it went this way instead." God sees the full picture. You see a small piece of it, and trusting Him with that difference is one of the hardest things about faith, but also one of the most freeing. There's a prayer that I think changes everything when you mean it, and it's only a few words. It's, "Not my will, but yours." That prayer doesn't mean you stop asking. It doesn't mean you stop bringing your real desires and real pain to God. It means that at the end of it, you trust that He knows better, and you remain open to the answer looking different than what you expected. Reason number 5. You gave up too soon. This one is real. A lot of people prayed hard for something and then stopped. They decided it wasn't going to happen. They accepted defeat. They moved on. And I want to ask you today, what did you stop praying for? What did you give up on that maybe you shouldn't have? Luke 18 tells the story of a woman who kept coming back to a judge over and over, asking for justice. And she didn't give up. And eventually, she got what she was asking for. And Jesus told that story specifically to teach people that they should always pray and not give up. Not give up. Those are the words. There are prayers that need persistence. There are things in your life that are going to require you to come back again and again and again. Not because God is making you suffer, but because the act of persistent prayer does something inside you. It builds something. It grows your faith. It shapes you into someone who can actually carry the answer when it comes. So if you've stopped praying for something, and it still matters to you, I want to encourage you to start again. Here's the thing I really want you to hold on to, and this is the part where I need you to really listen. Prayer isn't a formula you get right or wrong. It's a relationship, and in any real relationship, there are moments of silence. There are moments where you feel distant. There are moments where you don't understand what the other person is doing. That doesn't mean the relationship is broken. It means it's real. The reason your prayers sometimes feel like they're not working is not usually because prayer doesn't work. It's because prayer is working in a way that you can't measure yet. It's changing you. It's changing things around you that you can't see. It's setting things in motion that haven't arrived yet. And one day, maybe soon, maybe later, you're going to look back at this season of waiting, of doubt, of unanswered prayers, and you're going to see it differently. You're going to see that God was always there, that He was always listening, that every single prayer counted. Not one was wasted. Not one fell to the ground unheard. The silence was never rejection. The silence was preparation. So let's bring this together. If your prayers seem like they're not working right now, here's what I want you to remember. Check your heart. Not your words, not your technique, your heart. Pray believing, not just saying. Trust the timing. Some prayers are seeds that take time to grow underground. The waiting doesn't mean it's dead. Look inward, honestly. Is there something, bitterness, unforgiveness, a habit, that might be creating distance? Not as a reason to feel guilty, but as a reason to grow. Stay open. The answer might look different than what you imagined, and it might be better. Don't give up. Come back again and again. Persistence in prayer is not desperation. It's faith. And most of all, remember that prayer was never meant to be a transaction. It was meant to be a conversation, a relationship, the most important one you have. You are not praying into empty air. You are talking to someone who knows your name, who knows your pain, who has been listening to every single word. Keep praying. If this spoke to you, subscribe so you don't miss the next one.